Machado's here. Austin's here. Sean Machado. Can you get Saints here, Commissioner? All right, hold up. Thank you. Hey guys, couple of agendas.
Okay, good evening, everybody. The Joint Municipal Facilities Subcommittee meeting, jointly with the School Committee Facilities Subcommittee, will hold a public meeting. Today's date is June 17th, 2025. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Chairperson Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Bahu?
Here.
Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Chairperson Belanja?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Scott? 5 present, 1 absent.
Okay, so we have 4 items on the agenda this evening. Do I hear a motion to combine items 1 and 3 on the floor? Made by Councilor Dakota, second. By Councilor Giccia. Roll call, please. Oh, no, actually, we're good. You don't need a roll call. Yep, okay. That being said, we're going to combine item agenda number 1 and 3, which includes timeline of work for required renovations of St. Jean d'Arc School and timeline on...
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
If you could, since Councilor Gitcher is not on the subcommittee, I don't believe he can second that.
He can't second it.
Ms. Shan? You can't?
He cannot.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Doherty, just second it.
Seconded by Chair Doherty. Thank you, Councilor. So again, agenda items are going to combine timeline of work required for renovations at St. Jean d'Arc School and timelines on Pawtucket Memorial Elementary School roof repair. And I see we have Commissioner St. Cyr on hand tonight. Commissioner, if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium and giving us an update on these 2 very important projects.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I apologize for running in the door a little bit late. I literally came from meeting with the OPM.
You weren't the only one, Commissioner. Go ahead.
For the Jean d'Arc. So we're making, I think, really pretty good progress with going through some of the things. We've met with the schools. We've actually toured in Andover, Crest, to get some ideas about what the finishes would be within there, the building itself for these children and some of the amenities that we would hope to be able to put in place. The OPM was able to take that tour with us, so it's a lot of things came to light out of it, some things to think about. So it's kind of a specialty building, and so we want to make sure we put those things in place. We're going to be meeting again on Thursday of this week, really looking to do some of the enabling to take some of the clutter out of the way for moving forward with the construction process. So upgrading the electrical, which will be needed for the building, getting that in from National Grid and in place for all of the needs that are going to go on there. We're also working with sustainability. We're waiting to hear, keeping our fingers crossed, for a significant grant that will allow us to move forward with electrification in this building as a pilot. So really taking a building that was, coming from the late 50s or so, with the way the mechanicals are original in many places there, and bringing them forward and going to an electrified building with heat pumps and a lot of modern amenities, and cutting down on the whole carbon footprint side.
Well, I think this body likes the word grants,
Yeah, for
Commissioner, so
sure.
that's good, it's a good,
So
it's a good thing.
we're hoping to hear on that by the end of this month, and that will help determine what parts of the scope would be able to be accomplished with that. So like I said, more news to come on that hopefully in these next couple of weeks. We're also breaking out the parts for the designer for the longer term for what the finished product will be. We know that the enabling portions that we are things that we'll have to do regardless, and are fairly straightforward and easy, and it just gets that out of the way for us. Some of it is even the ticking of the clock for bringing in services and things like that from National Grid. There's a fair amount of time that has to go through to work your way up in the queue and get that service brought across. So those will all be good things to have in hand. I would say that certainly our goal is still for getting the school open for the September of 26.
26.
Ideally, I don't think it's fair to say that we'll have the elevator portion of it completed at that point. That's going to be the lead time issue that we knew was going to happen. So we're hoping by January 1st of that year to have that, and if it can be improved, certainly we would do that.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Thank you. I know when we spoke, I want to say it was 6 to 8 weeks ago, we identified the elevator was going to have the longest timeline on it.
Right.
Have we ordered it? Because at that time, we were saying a year, and we're still in June, so.
Right. So the design portion of it has to happen because there's a shaft that has to be added to the outside of the building. So all of that has to happen. And it also has to tie together with the service that comes across, the electrical service, and what they'll be working with for that. So as soon as it's through the design process, we'll have better dates for what equipment is specified and what the delivery times would be for something like that.
When are you predicting the design portion will be completed?
We're ideally would have it out by around first part of August.
And just to the superintendent, can we get into that building without the elevator? How crucial is the elevator for the population that we're trying to serve?
At best, we'd be able to occupy just the first floor. Obviously, we couldn't occupy the second floor without an elevator. And then depending on what the construction is like, we may or may not be able to access the first floor while the construction is still ongoing. It's possible we could, but I wouldn't be able to determine that at this point.
Okay, open it up. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Wouldn't that be, I don't see how you'd get an occupancy permit without ADA compliance on that, especially for a building like that. So, I mean, I don't even think that would be an option without getting the elevator situated first.
Commissioner, any response to that?
Well, there are several buildings that we have that do not have elevators in them at this point.
The last time we did meet, I believe, Mr. St. Cyr, that you said to order the elevator and have it all in would be at least a year. Is that
Right.
still something? So if we're looking at August, you're looking at next August on a completion then? That's cutting it close.
It is. It is. And that's why I said, we're looking more like a January 1st date of that year. And if we can trim that back in any way, we certainly will.
Okay.
Councilor Getchia?
So just because other buildings don't have ADA compliance, when you go to apply for a new occupancy permit,
Yep.
they're going to require that. They require it in every building that we've ever done that for, whether you're purchasing or something, once you go for a new permit, they're going to require it. So there's going to be no occupancy without it, is my understanding.
So, go ahead.
When I think of the schools in Lowell that don't have an elevator, the older ones, like the Laura Lee and the 80, and that's all one floor, right? So that makes sense for that population, but it's still, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so the issue is they're grandfathered in, Commissioner?
Well, they are,
The
and
committee member.
we're trying to work through that process. It's hard to
Right.
say without having those things in place and contracted and all of it in place in front of us yet. So as soon as we get that, I think we'll have a better chance of saying, when the elevator would be up and done.
Okay, Committee Member Bahu, anything to add?
Sure, it sounds like things are moving forward. I guess my first question is, when did we hire the project manager?
So it was awarded about 6 weeks ago, close to 6 weeks ago.
Okay, and is that name public?
It's Watermark.
Oh, it's Watermark has that.
They haven't.
Great. And did they discuss elevators at all with you yet? Or
Yes, they have. Yeah, several times. And we've been to the building several times with them.
And have they discussed delays and timelines and how that would actually work? I mean, I'm hearing it could be a year, even up to a year and a half.
Right.
But are there any, real dates on delays on, it sounds like the design's going to take place by realistically a couple of months from now.
Right.
So what's realistic? Because it just seems like there's a lot of dates being thrown around here, but we're trying to occupy the school as best as we can. So what are the dates that elevators, are there delays on elevators? What do you know about?
And I think that from, depending on the manufacturer, I mean, there are several companies that do, the public work that this would go out as. Delta is probably the most common. They seem to get an awful lot of them. So it's going to matter about, what we're able to put on them as far as timelines for performance and even what gets specified, And so we're trying to make that part of the design process as well, that we're, hate to say it, but we're looking at a vanilla. We're not trying to make it so customized that it causes other delays. If there's a way to streamline that process, that's what we're looking to do.
You good, Mr. Bahu? Committee Member Martin, anything? No? Committee Member Dominic Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, could we just be a pain in the neck and ask them why we have to wait a year for an elevator? Could we just keep on asking them, speed up and move a little faster?
Yeah, I mean, and certainly we'd look to keep the pressure on for those things. I mean, as you can imagine, whatever is in their pipeline, what things are in queue ahead of us, and so on, certainly will play its role. But we'd look to make that that specification as tight as we can.
Okay, thanks.
Committee Member Doherty, go ahead.
I just wanted to refer again to the superintendent. I know we have real programmatic needs, which is why we purchased the building, and we're, so anxious about when we'll be able to move children and staff in. I'm wondering, Superintendent, if you can comment, does the January open date work for us at all? And
So maybe I'll just tweak my first answer. Given I was thinking about it a little bit more about using the school with one floor while the elevator's been, it would be particularly unsuitable for the population it would be at that school, right? I think that there's a special program school for special education students with autism. It would be particularly unsuitable for them to be in a school around the construction area. Yeah. So otherwise, to answer the question, the sooner the better, the sooner we have it. And so, if it's available in January, that probably will slow down our ability to use it fully until the next school year, but maybe not entirely. As soon as it's ready, we'll begin to use it. And by the beginning of the next school year, we'll be using it fully. So we definitely need the space. We definitely can save the district funds by having students in district versus out of district. And there's also the matter of the lease of the building in Chelmsford that we use at the moment. So that lease will be up presumably in a summer month. So we still have 6 months left on that lease at minimum. those factors mean that having the building be available in January is not as useful. But it's absolutely it's better to have it in January than February. The sooner that we have it, the better.
Interesting. Okay. Councilor Getchia, do you have anything? Okay. Committee member Del Rossi.
So just in thinking about this for the school side, I think it's strategic to think about what floor the nurse's office is going to be on, and also the medically fragile students who may be in wheelchairs. So that's not a concern to begin with, like, and that first floor is maybe all ready and there's no construction going on.
Using the word concern, it's not a concern, meaning it's of great concern, it's of great importance that we pay attention to that. And I think that when Mr. St. Cyr and Watermark and some of our own custodial facilities people toured that building and toured another building in another community for comparison purposes, they brought along our special ed staff and our assistant superintendent for student support services. So just those kinds of considerations could be included in our thinking.
Okay. That's good. Committee member Bahu?
Sure, and when I'm hearing January 1, am I hearing January 1, 2026 or January 1?
2027.
2027. So we're actually...
About 18 months.
We may not be fully occupied until September of 2027. Is that correct? Based on opening the school halfway through the school year and such like.
January of 27.
So it would be the summer of 27, the 27-28 school year would be the first full year of that new building.
Amazing. It actually works at the same timeline as the high school. Gotta love these delays. Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dakota?
Thank you. Just for clarification, is it the elevator that's taking the time, or is there other repairs that are more serious in the building? Because I remember taking the tour, and I knew the elevator was going to be a problem, but it didn't seem like that building was it was almost ready to go. You guys were looking at the floors maybe for asbestos or something, and I don't know if you found any, but is the elevator the reason here, or is there something else major going on here?
The elevator is certainly the biggest delay that I think we'll face. I think part two of it is as we get through the design process, there's going to be some forks in the road that we'll come to based on the availability of these funds that we're expecting to hear about in the next couple of weeks. With what we would choose for mechanicals.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Getchia?
You know, I feel for the commissioner, because most communities, and as we start to talk about a facilities department, this is the reason why. They actually do construction, design, everything within facilities departments, and he's cut short with everything else he has on his plate between roads and other things that go on down there. And now you're pushing everything away and away and away. That's why there needs to be a facilities department. If you look at places, they have OPMs within their facilities department, so you don't have to pay that on major contracts. And now you're pushing out and out. The elevator should have already been in place. It should have all had the RFP all done. But again, here we are, you're putting people in positions that this is not their forte, is setting up contracts for elevators, looking through this procurement pieces. When was the last time, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, that you were in the process of putting a new elevator in any building within the city? From scratch?
I haven't, yeah.
Never, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you we have very many
and it's a
old
sad place where
elevators.
we're putting people in this position to stand up here, field all these questions, when it's not their forte. And we're like going backwards in all this stuff, so it's taking longer for them to figure out some of the hurdles that you have to get over to get to this position. And this isn't the only position that he's going to have as a challenge at the same time as managing everything on his side of the house. And that's why we're really talking about a facilities department. They do design, they do construction, they listen to all the HVAC problems, they do all that stuff. I think it's truly unfair that we're at this position and we're pushing timeframes out when we hear the superintendent speak here and he's saying how much of a need it is for these students to get in this building. And that's why we're backwards in this city, and we have been since the turn of the century, and we're still at the same place, and we're not about to change. So, Mr. Commissioner, I thank you for the work you're doing, because I can only imagine the challenges you're going through, especially in this time to be doing this, because elevator companies are the worst to deal with right now.
They are.
And getting people to bid and everything else is going to be a challenge going forward. So I just want to make everybody aware of the challenges that are going to be there going forward too. And we have all these buildings that really need upgrades and more attention to them than what we're giving them over the last few years for the quality of the learning environment.
Thank you, Councilor Gitche. It's a great segue into an agenda item later on the evening. And but to take a minute here, I'd like to voice my concern that I'm very concerned with the delay in this elevator that we can lose the entire school year in 2026. That elevator is not ready. We're limited to the first floor, and not till we have special needs students in there with construction going on. I don't consider that a very good environment at all. So there's a huge possibility here. I want to be optimistic here, believe me. I don't want to be a downer. We're all working together here to school committee member Don McAlee's point that we need to fast track this. Anything we can do, Commissioner, and you need help on the council side, but again, I just want to stress I'm in fear we're going to lose the entire school year.
Right.
And I hope that's not the case.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm wondering,
Chair
does
Doherty.
anyone recall when we purchased the St. John Dark School? Was it last spring? March 2024.
2024.
Should have, yeah.
Can I add some context? if I may?
Superintendent, by all means.
Thank you. We're very grateful that with the collaboration with the city that caused us to purchase Jeanne d'Arc. It was ESSER funds that were available, $2.4 million to purchase Jeanne d'Arc. It's also true that it feels a bit like happenstance, like, that building became available and we had some ESSER dollars and we took advantage of it. And we're having this discussion, really good discussion now, about can't we hurry up and get it opened up for us, right? But if that just hadn't been available to us, we wouldn't be having this discussion, and we'd be looking for additional space for a school that's already out of town in Chelmsford, and we'd be putting more students out of district. The point here is that we have to look at the city more holistically in terms of the development of the school, the population and the school-age children and how much space is needed. Shortly before Jeanne d'Arc became available, St. Louis campus was available. It was a terrific place for a school with open space and so on. We lost that opportunity. That wasn't availed of. If we had availed of it, we might be arguing with the commissioner tonight about opening that school sooner. But we're actually not. That would be a great argument to have, because we'd have that coming online. Having Jeanne d'Arc coming online, despite it not being soon enough for us, is a good problem to deal with. But there's much more of this, I believe, in the pipeline, meaning our schools are jammed full. We don't have, and it's also, there's lots of things that are not in your control nor mine. There are many, many additional what we call sub-separate special education programs. We're looking at why is the autism population increasing nationwide and locally and so on, and why are the costs so high and all that. But in the meantime, we need space. We could do with space for other programs like early childhood. They're not mandated, so we're not talking about that tonight. But just in our schools, we talked, I believe, in 2014, I was a school principal, and we were in discussion at that time about building a new K-8 school in Pawtuckaville. Well, that never happened, and we got along fine for, what's that been, 11 more years. But we've got to look at it not just about Jeanne d'Arc, but looking forward for the next 5 or 10 or 15 years. What's a reasonable prediction for the amount of school space that's necessary? Where could we find that space and renovate, or should we be building new schools?
Thank you, Superintendent Skinner, for highlighting the positives here. They really are. I know what you're saying. I guess it can't come fast enough. I see your point. Anything else to add before we move on to the Pawtuckaville Memorial roof update? Anything to add on Jeanne d'Arc? Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item. Commissioner, if you could please give us an update on the timelines of the Pawtuckaville Memorial Elementary School roof repair, please.
So with the most recent budget, the appropriation went through for the monies that are necessary to do the roof at the Pawtuckettville School. The schematic design is completed, and we're going on to the full-fledged portion of that, and we're looking to have that out just about in that same timeline as the money's becoming available, going out for bid to award and then move forward with the construction and replacement of the roof at the Pawtuckettville. We had that conversation with the superintendent as well. Kind of no different than what we've done with the 4 roofs that went on this year through the MSBA program, the ARP program. It will linger into the school year, but that's the same thing that has happened at the Shaughnessy School and at the Wang School through the course of this year, and we're mindful of how that would have to work. So we can call that a completed job. So we're just going to go from start to finish right through the entire roof there at Pawtuckettville, starting, sometime during this summer.
Sometime during the summer. Okay. Any questions? Councilor Getchia.
Through you to the Commissioner, do we have a plan for maintaining the rubber roofs that are currently on other buildings outside of these? And do we have all the seams resealed at times, or do we just, and I know you're new with this for the most part, or do we just wait till they feel like Pawtucket Memorial did and then just wait till replacement?
So it's a process we're going through right now. We've actually have a consulting company that's come in and is assessing every one of the roofs and where those deficiencies are, any of the places, and even in fact, the inspections that would go on annually with a commercial roof. So we're able to comply with the warranty sides of those things. They're going to be going through the 4 MSBA roofs, for instance, that were just recently completed to have that third check of any missing components or problems that we have there before going through the final closing documents with them.
When you say recently completed, how long ago were they completed?
There's some punch list items that are still going on at 3 of the schools. So, I mean, they're...
Within a couple of years?
No, it's this year.
Okay.
That's what's been going on this year.
So my concern is, as you look at these buildings, especially rubber roofs where they heat and contract and expand and contract and you're in between, what happens is it separates those joints. And there should be a maintenance plan in place currently that says, okay, any roof that's over 10 years old, we just go seam seal all of it. And it's not that expensive to do at this point, and it will stop a lot of those leaks coming in year 12, 13, 14. And I think that that's historically what the problem is with the city is the maintenance end of a lot of things within, whether it was the HVAC that you guys have done an amazing job at trying to get in under wraps. But that's my concern with the Pawtucket and all of these things that we just keep letting fall apart in the past. So hopefully we have these maintenance plans started to get into policies and procedures. And whoever the company is writing it, I would love to see those at the end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy to.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, can we get more specific? Do you need more time to give us more specifics about the roof at the Pawtucket? Like you said, sometime during the summer. Are you thinking?
So we have to go through the bid process because the money was appropriated, so it doesn't even become available until July 1st. And so they'll go out to bid, we'll have that back in place, and from there we'll be able to determine a better schedule. I'm happy to share that as soon as we have it.
So the bid hasn't gone out yet. It won't be out till July 1st.
The money isn't appropriated until July.
For the new fiscal year.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions for the Commissioner on the Pawtuckettville Memorial School roof repair? Okay.
Superintendent.
Oh, Superintendent Skinner, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. On that last point about waiting till the new fiscal year, I'm concerned about whether we open school at the end of August. We always say we open school in September, but it's really the end of August.
Right.
And we need a reasonable assurance that we can open school. We have, in recent times, had some great progress made with repairing roofs in our schools and so on, including up until October recently at the Shaughnessy School, which proved not to be a problem.
Right.
But so is that what we're talking about with the Pawtucket?
Exactly. We're looking to follow that same idea.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilor Getchia.
Question, I'm sorry. Through you to the Commissioner, when do purchase orders get okayed? So say you have hoods that need to be inspected or roofs that need to be inspected. Do they open up now so that you can get that PO in place so that they can get it in the first week of July, or do they open it up the first week in July so you can get moving?
Correct. first week in July.
So you can't open any PO prior to July?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's government for you, Counselor. Thank you. Great question. Anybody else, any questions? Committee members, councilors? No? Okay. Chair Doherty, we're good? Okay. Moving on. Thank you very much, Commissioner. We look forward to future updates. Please expedite those elevators. Do the best you can. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, next item on the agenda, requests joint subcommittee of the City Council Municipal Facilities Subcommittee with the School Committee Facilities Subcommittee to discuss merger of the facilities departments. If I just may give a little timeline, a little chronology here of how we got here this evening. On Tuesday, May 6th, the City Council passed a vote to officially consolidate the school department and city facility departments, therefore allowing the manager to enter negotiations with Superintendent Skinner. On Wednesday, May 21st, it was voted unfavorably by the school committee. They had concerns, which were genuine, and that's part of the reason we're here tonight, to hopefully hash out those differences and their concerns. It's very understandable, and that's why we are here convening tonight. Then on the meeting on Tuesday, May 27th, Councilor Gitchia made the motion to request the joint subcommittee meeting of the Municipal School Committee Facilities Department with the City of Lowell Facilities Department, which is why we're here tonight, to continue those negotiations. So I'll start by saying that, I think it's quite clear where the council stands on this issue. We take into account, we realize that, we have not done a good job over the years with school maintenance. It's obvious. We've come to terms with that, and we are trying to improve on that. And we understand the concerns wholeheartedly that you may have on your end. So I think it's quite clear where we stand. We voted unanimously for, and this vote was just to allow the manager, city manager, and the Superintendent Skinner to just have negotiations, the two guys that we hired to hash things out that hopefully can satisfy both sides here. So I guess I'll open it up to School Committee Chair Doherty, if you'd like to start. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to go back to the issue with the St. John d'Arc School. I am very much in favor of updating to new heating systems, having a heating cooling system that's sustainable, that's better for the environment. I think that we are all on the same page with doing a better job with maintenance going forward. I'm just going to speak for myself. We have felt that the maintenance of our buildings has not been up to snuff, as Councilor Belanger mentioned. And just recently, in the last few weeks, actually, it happened that I woke up to a text at 7 in the morning. We had no heat at the Bartlett School, which happens to house 19 of our wheelchair students. Our medically complex students are also in that building. And the temperature was 51 degrees. The teacher sent me the thermostat showing it, and immediately notified the superintendent, Ricky Underwood, our team of people, to meet with the city team, get the city on board 4 hours before anybody showed up. At that point, one child had to be sent home that it was too cold. I would assume not much learning happened that day because everybody was freezing. And it just drove home a point for me personally that we just don't feel like we're on the priority list. Things take forever to get done. And meanwhile, we watch the maintenance of effort go up and up and up while the city cash contribution goes down. And we know the maintenance is not happening in the building. So I am all for doing something that's going to have a better outcome. My concern with moving forward and kind of relinquishing what little control we have, saying, okay, we're going to join facilities, what's going to be better for us about that? And what do we have in terms of guarantees in writing that we're going to get our facility needs met? And, maybe you don't have that tonight for us, but certainly any kind of move forward to begin those negotiations would, for me, be contingent upon the bottom line is going to be we're going to get a more responsive, timely, and, comprehensive maintenance of our buildings. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Need to know more and looking for some reassurances that it's going to be better. Thank you.
Understood, Chair Doherty. Great points. Thank you very much. Committee Member Del Rossi.
So my concern and my fear is how does this look? How is it going to change? It's all going to be the same people, and just because now we combine the funds? Or I guess that's where I don't understand and need clarification. Because in my head, I'm thinking, well, they'll just take all the custodians' hours and turn those into maintenance of effort instead. So it's just kind of not understanding from my component.
Okay, thank you. Committee Member Del Rossi. Committee Member Bahu, would you like that?
Well, I didn't raise my hand, but that's okay.
Oh, well, I'm just going down the line.
I
Okay,
will say
all right.
this.
Okay, all right, yeah.
That, we were asked to vote on merging the plant services. However, we hadn't heard anything about it. There was not any information that was shared with us. It was just on our agenda. It was passed 11-0 by the city council, and ultimately we were blind. So it would have been nice, as we are here right now, having a conversation about it, to learn and have that shared of what it actually looks like, what the negotiation looks like, what the maintenance of effort looks like if we are going to turn over our custodial department, and is that going to sort of be more of a cost to the school district and less of a assistance from the city? So those are the questions that I have. Thank you for calling on me, Mr. Belanger, but I was just willing to listen and learn, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on the school committee side want to go? Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Well, who do you want? Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I mean, this isn't the first that we had a conversation about a centralized facilities. This has been around in conversation for 3-4 years. Realistically, I think people are worrying and panicking at step 7 before we get to step 1. The vote that was taken was given the manager the authority to begin negotiations and discussions with the superintendent to carve out what a facilities department looks like. So a lot of the questions we have too. Similar, I mean, no one knows what this looks like as far as that tree goes. What we do know is, in this relationship situation here, we're ultimately responsible for these facilities, as you said. 4 hours, no one shows up, to be almost expected, because we're functioning from a place where it's hard to prioritize, say, the Bartlett School on a morning when we don't know what was going on in any of the other facilities that the city's ultimately responsible for at that time. The senior center could have been dealing with something. I mean, there's a million things that, as was pointed out earlier, the commissioner is trying to juggle. I mean, we have one person trying to oversee all the facilities that the city's responsible for ultimately. Another thing is routine upkeep and maintenance. When that doesn't get done, and I'm not talking skilled trades work, routine upkeep and maintenance in the facility leads to skilled trades work being required at a big price tag in some areas. So I think, yes, we all have the same question. What does this look like? But we can't even begin to carve out what this looks like and what's going to suit what we're trying to establish and what that desired outcome I think we all share is, until we have some draft in place, and it's going to be a working document. We have a lump of clay on the table right now, and we're saying, come to the table with us and help us shape this block. And no one's saying that you have to agree with what we're proposing, but all we're proposing is, let's begin the work to carve out what this department looks like, because that's what real successful communities are doing. When we have this many facilities, ultimately one person has to be responsible for everything that happens within our facilities. And I hear people mixing multiple things into this conversation. Right now, we're talking about carving out, creating a facilities department. As far as maintenance of effort charge-offs and all that, there's an agreement that governs that currently. That's a different discussion. That's something that I'm not saying is good or bad in the current situation. I'm not familiar enough with the current agreement that's in place. But I do know we do need to do something about facilities. And if people feel like they need to adjust and change this maintenance effort charge-off agreement, well, then make the motion and bring that forward in a separate conversation. Don't let it muddy the waters with this, because we're just chasing our tail here. That's all that's going on. Let's create a facilities. Well, we don't know enough about it, so we can't support it. And it's going nowhere. But ultimately, your teachers, your students, our families, they have to thrive in this environment. If this facilities doesn't work out, I mean, unfortunately, they're the ones that suffer. That's the reality of it. So, I mean, we can sit here and say we're afraid of the unknowns, or we can say this is what we're going to do, and this is what we all agree to move forward. Let's start somewhere, because without that, I mean, where's it going to go? It's impossible, as you've seen for quite some time, to maintain what we're currently responsible for. I mean, we would need probably another 100 people that would just be dedicated and assigned to the schools to get the responses that you deserve. But, I mean, again, we're juggling as well. So I think it's the right time to carve something out that works for everyone involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Robinson. Councilor Getchia.
It's amazing to me to hear that this is the first people have heard of it. And even if they didn't, they opened their packet 48 hours in advance. They could have certainly looked up what other communities do for their facilities. One look in the other communities who have done this for 20 years and have the highest scores of MCAS in the state because of learning environments and many other things. They have this in place. And the reason why they have this in place is because the learning environment needs to change. You've heard tonight, we have people in place that are learning on the job to get things done, and it's costing you time. And it's costing you maybe another school year. I don't know that, Superintendent, but I can tell you that you're asking people to do things that are outside their comfort zone. And then we put them up in front of a microphone and say, hey, look, you know what, here we are. But wait a minute, we care about the maintenance of effort. Do we care about the kids or we care about the money? Where is it? And when we look at a lot of things, we've all worked well together. And I get the money piece, but at the end of the day, the maintenance of effort, I don't know. You guys have a certain right to do a Public Information Act. If you want that and you say they're not responsive, fill out a piece of paper and ask for it. Freedom of Information Act. I did it when I was on Greater Lowell when I didn't get the information I wanted. Remember, Mr. Bahu? We did that. So if people are that pushy and they want something, go get it. But realistically, when you start talking about this, you're talking about efficiencies and things that need to work. And we're talking, and Ms. Doherty just highlighted it perfectly. We called it this time and we didn't get anybody. Well, if you look at most communities, they're totally separate. The DPW is over here, your facilities department's over here. There's a staff over here. And no custodian's going to want this change because it's accountability. That's what happens. You get a new boss, things change, and people aren't used to what they're used to in the past. When we left Ashes and Waste, we had to say, look, we're looking for an efficiency. Ashes and Waste left, and we got another provider to try to do that work. When you start looking at a lot of this, you're looking and saying, okay, who has control of the facilities right now? Does Mr. Skinner? I mean, you don't have control of it. I mean, you call and say, okay, here you go, and you wait hoping that some. We talked about Pawtucket Memorial for how long, Councilor Dakota? And it was 2 years before he got on. We were talking about Pawtucket Memorial and mold. Well, you got a facilities department, there's someone accountable, and here it is. This is the point. The start point, the end point is with the department. Right now, you don't have that. It's like putting together police and fire and saying, okay, the police are going to go to fires, the firemen are going to go to fires, the firefighters are going to go to the police, and the police are going to go to... They're two totally... You're asking people who repair roads to come in and help people out, or do this or that, or paint rooms and this and that. Custodians should be able to paint. You're going to make a better place. A ceiling tile's falling, you should be able to get up and fix it. I don't care who it is in the building. Fix it for the kids, fix it for the environment. It's just hard to sit here and think, and I agree with what you're saying, because the calls I spoke to most of you on this issue after the vote, and I said, okay, and they made sense. Some of them were worried about the maintenance of effort, but a school committee shouldn't have to worry about control over buildings. It's not something, it's about the learning environment and trying to get it this way. I don't understand a lot of this that's going on. We have, Ms. Doherty, you've been a part of the facilities. I was the chairman of the facilities when we sat here, and we talked about screens being ripped, and we went through the whole thing. We've made a difference since then. And we have been pushing that way. I understand the heating issue just recently, but I think this winter was probably one of the better ones we've had, so we should give credit to that department for, we have tried to make changes. Are we perfect? No. No, I can't lie to you and say any school system is perfect, because it's not. But we're trying to get to this point, and this council, the last council, have fought to try to make a difference in those schools. We've poured more money than ever into these schools, and we're saying to get to this efficiency point, this is the way to do it. If you don't want to do it, I'm okay with it. But don't call me at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, you know what, this ain't working this way or that way, because you already know the known. We've done this for 30 years. We all know what's going on. We've seen it. Our friends don't do the work. We all get it. Somebody knows somebody, someone will stand up here and say, hey, you know what, this is wrong. Well, you're the one who's supposed to be fixing it. Why isn't this right? We need to take a serious approach to trying to fix this. And no one's saying this is the ultimate solution, but when you look at other departments, they have OPMs within their facilities department, so you don't even have to go out public procurement for an owner's project manager. They have it within that department. They have people trying to design exactly what you said, Superintendent Skinner. They're trying to design for the future in the over-enrollment. That's their job within that facilities department. We're not even at the stage where we can turn on the lights right. And here we are in 2025, so we need your help, and that's all we're saying is, if you don't like it, don't sign it. But at the end of the day, we should sit here and have a strong conversation on it, and I agree with the vote that you guys took the other night, because we brought the city solicitor for all the questions that we were getting. He's here, so maintenance of effort, what does that do? He's here, you know, you can ask those questions to him, and we can try to figure out things, but if we're not willing to talk and we just shut the door, it's not gonna. Somebody should have tabled that vote the other night, not voted no, because it doesn't really show that, and we have all worked together. I think just showing that we gave $2 million, and I spoke to Mr. Skinner before taking that vote, and he said that that number was good by him. I would have never voted for that. So we have been working together. Thank you.
But I would like to say you restored $2 million. You didn't give $2 million.
Well, the state's going to give you more money.
$14 million last.
The state's bringing you more money. So whatever the point is, you're going to get even more than
Okay,
that.
we can go on. Superintendent Skinner?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to come around to talking in a positive light about the idea on the table. But if I may say so first, I think there's really important framing that's missing from the conversation. And some of that framing is that, like, we point to Commissioner St. Cyr and how unreasonable it is for him to keep up with all of the facilities. We don't know the day that the heat was missing from the school, what other things were going on in the city. The problem there is that there's not enough people working for Mr. St. Cyr, not enough of a team, and maybe we need to cooperate with the city to fix that. But when you're lacking heat in your apartment, the landlord is not expected to come and ask for some concession from the renter to fix that problem. It's the landlord's responsibility. It's not a perfect analogy, but the city doesn't have to come to the school department to ask for a cooperative agreement around facilities, around a facilities department. That's the city's duty to provide for the buildings to be in good condition. Because, I told you I'd come back to talking positively about it. I think it's that framing, I think, that's missing. And it's particularly when you put that on the school committee agenda at the same moment that the city has significantly shortchanged the schools in city cash. It's not a good moment for trust. So I will say, and if the school committee chooses to give me the ability to negotiate with the city manager, I think one critical piece of that would be, it needs to be really clear that the school committee retains control over that decision, whatever we negotiate. But I would be willing to do that, and I do think there's something there, and I do think there's something we do cooperatively that can provide for better circumstances, and including a facilities department dedicated to the schools only. That definitely is something that would be worthwhile. I think it's possible that we're in this dynamic where the schools have not been dealt with well. There's not been a facilities department to do repairs and turn on the heat and so on. And yet we're afraid to work with the city on that because that problem, there's a lack of trust. I do think there's something we can do. I think the manager and I could hammer out an agreement. It would depend on it being, like, in other words, at the moment when the city has reduced cash significantly to the school department, it could not be that we work cooperatively on this to use school department funds to create a facilities department for the city, if you get my drift. I think there's something there, but it would definitely be important to frame it correctly and to have it be fair.
Thank you, Councilor Gitcher. Before I go to Councilor Dakota.
I think that we're missing something here. So with the custodian piece, that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about creating anything. We're saying that we're going to push a facilities department together. We have lands and buildings, so we don't need to create one on that aspect. All we're trying to do is add custodians to it, because the longevity of a building is based off of how clean it is, the maintenance piece in between, and the warranties. Things are not meeting their life expectancy in those buildings. One walk through the Sullivan School and you can see that things weren't taken care of properly. One walk through that high school and that gym floor, one can clearly see it wasn't taken care of when you walk in for a walkthrough and there's gum on the floor. And it's all over the place and we walk through. And there was 8 people there during the walkthrough. One can clearly see some things are not being done. So we're saying, look, we don't need to do this. It's not like the city needs to do this. If you guys want to keep the custodians and everything, okay, we're all set. I mean, it's not like we're trying to make a better department so everyone can work together here. I don't know if the landlord analogy is really that good, because I'm not sure where the rents come. I don't know that maintenance of effort that well to say, are we actually meeting the demands of what these buildings actually cost? Because I know I get to maintain one building, and the cost there would choke people. You know, $54 million. It's over 3 or 4 to maintain that one building out there. So that you know, and you have 29 of them. So I think that there is a separation in what you're saying in most communities, if we all read what other communities do. There's a facilities department that it is split between municipal side and school side in every one of those agreements. A control factor, I'm not sure that, I get the point to it, but it's a working together culture we're looking for, not a control factor, as just stated. It's not that the school committee controls, okay, this point to it. I don't think it's that serious. I think it comes down to, what do we want? Do we want to continue doing what we did for 30 years and have a stalemate here like they've had for the 30 years? Okay, we got a stalemate. We can all go home. We just wasted, more time. And we've been wasting it for 3.5 years. And you know, Chairman Doherty, we've been wasting this time for 3.5 years. And we're at the same place as you couldn't have a screen fixed. A facilities department absolutely has to be built with more people. There's no question you need more people. Lands and Buildings has 1 painter, I think. I think they just got 2 roofers for the entire city. So everything is reliant on contractors at that point. Your high school has no plumbers, no electricians, no person in charge of facilities. So what happens when a breaker goes out? Who fixes it? Who turns that breaker down over there?
Councillor,
Who does?
you're essentially asking the school department to find the savings to create this facility.
I don't know that number. You're saying that we're asking
Councillor,
the same.
if you're right, and we should have those plumbers for Lowell High School, and we should have people to fix the ceiling tiles, and there should be this.
No, not you. You shouldn't have that.
Correct.
The residents of this
should.
city should have that.
The city should have
because
that.
they just invested over $400 million in that building, and we're watching things that should have a life expectancy fail very early on in the project already. Door handles. If you had somebody over there with half a maintenance thing, tighten the screw, put it back together.
Councillor,
you walked in there, there's holes in the wall.
You don't need the school department to help to create a facilities crew. If that's what's required, the city should establish that. I'm not saying we won't work cooperatively with the city. If I'm charged by the school committee to do that, we will do so. But in other words, it can come across that we're creating some savings. A
facilities department is basically
a department for the city. It
Mr.
can't
Skinner,
be that way.
with all due respect, you do the education end, and I do facilities for a living. A custodian can do that work, tighten a screw on a doorknob. At the high school, they can't do that, right? And they don't do that. So that's the difference, and that's why we need a facilities department, so we can broaden the horizon of the employees we currently have and get things done. And the problem is, we can't even do that. We walk by when something's broken, and we all have the skill set to fix it. You know, it's like we do in a city when we drive by a pothole and we're a police officer and we can't call over and say, there's a pothole on this street, can we fix it? Well, it's not my job. And I think that's the problem in municipal government, the resident pays in the end.
Okay, Councilor Getchia, thank you. Councilor Dakota, then School Committee Member Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to say I'm glad to hear Mr. Skinner said that he's open for discussions with the city manager and trying to hammer out something. I think that's key. And I don't want to be redundant, but Councilor Robinson and Councilor Getchia have brought up most of the points that I'm going to bring up, but this is about accountability and efficiency. That's all this is. I've had the advantage of working for the Lowell Public Schools for 20 years and talking to teachers and students and actually receiving more phone calls now in the last 18 months as a city councilor from teachers saying the classrooms haven't been vacuumed in a month. The trash has sometimes not been picked up at night. We got a 3 to 11 shift for custodians that has no supervisor. Where's the accountability there? There is none. That's a waste of taxpayers' money right there. So I think that's what we're trying to do, is trying to get more efficiency. And I do understand what you're saying, Mr. Skinner, but how about training those custodians in some electrical, some plumbing, you know, and making them, they'll make more money. But to have custodians not cleaning the schools and on 3 to 11 shift is rampant right now. I will tell you that straight up from the phone calls that I'm getting from teachers and the majority of your schools. And that, to me, is inexcusable. And like Councilor Getchia said, it blows my mind that a custodian is unable to paint a wall. Really? So I think that's what we're trying to get to, is having the custodians do a little bit more in the schools, but with help from the city. So, like you said, I mean, Mr. St. Cyr was going this way, and it's just not enough. We need more help and more accountability and efficiency in the way we do things. And I think Councilor Getchia brought that point up very clearly, is that we need a facilities department, period. We do. It's just that plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dakota. Committee Member Martin.
Thank you very much. I think there's a lot of aspects of this that we all agree on, and I think that the idea that the city requires a facilities department makes perfect sense to me, given the lack of service that our school buildings have gotten over the years. And that's just the fact. I think we've all admitted that the overall school maintenance is the responsibility of the city, and we have all found failings in that over the last, I was going to say 24 years. I mean, it's been going on forever. So I think anything we can do to improve that, I would be willing to talk about. I think, to your point about custodians, anything we can do to improve that side of things, the day-to-day maintenance, we can certainly have those conversations. My concern is that if we subsume the custodial staff into this facilities department, where should we be taking our confidence that a system that has not worked, the facilities system has not worked for 20 plus years, it will not magically work by adding in more responsibility. You're telling us that you have grave responsibilities in terms of Mr. St. Cyr and what he needs to do, that we don't have the expertise, that the city is in a really challenged state to be able to maintain buildings, school buildings, city buildings, all these buildings. I don't see how an answer can be to take on additional responsibilities without additional funding, because there's no other funding we can put towards custodial staff. I mean, there's nothing else we can add to that. The only thing that would have to happen would be an elimination of kind of what we have currently to then be used to create this new department, which needs, as you're explaining it to me, additional staffing. I don't argue with you. I think you do. I think the city absolutely needs additional staffing, additional expertise, absolutely, for any of our buildings to be able to, for us to maintain them appropriately and kind of do that long-term planning on rubber roofs and heat pumps and all the other things that are part of maintaining really large, complicated municipal spaces. What I would need as we go into this kind of negotiation process is to be assured as to exactly what gets better. And I think this references back to kind of how we started the conversation. You know, in all these years, I haven't seen that yet. Would love to see it, but we would really need to, I think on both sides, have to have a very real understanding of what commitments are being made. And you know, again, to my point, I think that, you know, taking on additional responsibilities from the city side right now doesn't seem to make a lot of sense when the city could have the opportunity to fix the problems that exist currently, and then maybe take on additional responsibilities. So, you know, and I do think that there is a very fine line, and there is certainly a balancing act. You know, for those of us who've, you know, kind of been through this process a number of times in terms of budgets and all that, we all recognize that there's a certain push-pull, and that's just the reality. And in many cases, it serves a very real purpose. The idea that the schools and the city are separate, as much as it can be a challenge and let's be honest, a headache sometimes. But the reality is that it does serve a purpose when you have a council and a school committee that are forced to have to find a balance to be successful. We have to work together. I mean, it's like family. Like, you got to get along. You don't have another choice. And I think that really serves us well. But you can recognize, again, just in the very recent future, when the city is in a position of having to make a choice between fully funding something maybe on the school side or having to raise a tax rate, that's a tough decision, and I don't envy you it. But the reality is that the schools, that's going to be where the give comes. And I think that we would be just replicating that same dynamic for our custodial staff, that when push came to shove, that's where the cuts would come. So I just think we're trying to, I mean, I am all for improving services across the board. I am particularly in favor of building accountability measures on all sides so that we can point at what's important and be able to assure every family, every child, every teacher that our schools are being maintained appropriately and to the highest really levels that we could possibly achieve. But I don't think that I don't think we're at a place right now, and I don't feel like I'm in a place that I would be able to move forward without some very real assurances. And that's, you know, pencil to paper. That's putting things in writing that we can actually exchange ideas. If it's starting with the manager and the superintendent, so be it. But I would think that both bodies are going to be extremely invested in wanting to see the actual details that are being proposed. Thank you.
I'd like to just go back to what Council Robinson said about if we move forward to say, okay, we agree that the city manager and the superintendent can negotiate. My sense was we were agreeing to the whole kit and caboodle when that would not be feasible. I would agree to having those conversations.
The mayor did not say that. He tried to explain that night, matter of fact.
Well, what did the motion
Second of all,
say?
the whole kit and caboodle, we never had a kit and caboodle to present, so how could you?
But the motion, I don't think clearly.
The motion was given permission to establish a centralized facilities
But it
department.
was the mass, I'm sorry to just speak up, but it was the mass general law that you voted on that gives the city authority over the payroll and finances and all of that. And that's where it concerns me. And that's what the mass general law was that I read that you were voting on. And I have one more.
Solicitor's here for that.
Okay.
Garrett, would you like to respond to that?
And I have another question, if you can also ask.
Go right
So forever, since I've been in Lowell Public Schools, you've had to, like, a custodian can't do certain things because the city negotiated that with the schools. So now, I don't know why that happened. I think it's an air conditioner, a doorknob, like a lock,
Painting.
painting, like some of the silliest things. But it wasn't the school that negotiated that; it was the city.
Well, first,
And
we're
how does
blurring
that
the
all
lines.
impact?
Okay,
We're
can we
blurring the
let
lines with that, too.
Let the solicitor respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Chapter 71, Section 30M, when that's adopted by, as it was by the City Council, that authorizes the consolidation. And what happens after that is subject to the negotiations between both sides. The adoption of the statute simply authorizes a consolidation to be worked on.
So if I could follow up, so it authorizes consolidation. Does that mean if we don't like what that looks like, when it's presented to us, this is the negotiation, this is what you're going to get, we're already locked into having a consolidation? Is that what that means?
On my reading of the statute is silent on that, and so what would happen after each body votes on consolidation is subject to the will of the bodies. But the consolidation can't happen, what the statute says, unless it's approved by both bodies.
Right, so my understanding by that motion was that we were agreeing to the consolidation without having the negotiation or what the details were. And although we have talked about this for a couple of years, that's true, never with the details. Okay. Never with the details. And there is severe trust issues here. We want to know that the schools are going to be a priority. If we have 600 kids without heat, and many of them medically complex, that someone is going to make that a priority.
Just to answer something that school committee member Martin brought up, I agree with you in a lot of aspects. And the DPW is strapped with plowing this city and doing everything else. So do you know what those lands and buildings workers do when it's a snowstorm? They go and plow the city. So they're in plow trucks, and then you're asking them to work further and further into maintaining schools, where facilities departments don't do that. They maintain the facility, so they'll go over, they'll plow just the schools. So they do that. So that's another break off that you'll get a better service in. So that's where, yes, you need more employees, there's no question. There's no question to that. So, and where's the money coming from? Hopefully the savings is in the longevity of your schools, and you don't need a $400 million renovation sooner. Or some of the schools like the Pawtucket, you don't get the damage that you got of mold and everything within it. That's the savings. And I mean, maintenance programs, whether it's our roads, whether it's our buildings, whether it's our sustainability department, it's not something that they drop $1 million on your plate and say, here's your savings. You can't see the savings, but you get the atmosphere that's better for the will of the people. And that's where the savings is. It's not something we all are just going to magically appear. And to answer school committee woman Del Rossi's question about the unions, it has nothing to do with the city. The oversight of the buildings for facilities is part of 1705. The city manager didn't come in and say, okay, we're going to do this or that. The unions filed a grievance, and that's what this facilities department would change. Once you put it in, the job descriptions would be up for negotiations back and forth, and that's where we look at negotiating better pays and stuff like that to be able to utilize people in different areas.
Can I ask the
Mr. Committee Member Del Rossi, go ahead. Then Councilor Robinson.
Can I ask the city solicitor?
You may.
Just how the unions would impact this decision. Like, what if they didn't want to change it? And I know you kind of just said it, but I didn't. If you could, like, break it down simple for me.
That is a piece. Garrett?
Yeah, so that question's a little tough to answer at this point because we don't know what form the consolidation would take, what positions are affected, what unions are affected, and then so that question's very tough for me to answer until that happens. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. As far as the unions go, historically, the reason that it's been skilled trades work. We had people doing skilled trades work in schools for whatever reason, and it wasn't their job, clearly. That's where grievances and all that came about, and it was clearly carved out. Custodians could paint nothing larger than the size of an elevator shaft. I mean, all that was carved out. And we're not talking about skilled trades work. We're talking about the daily routine upkeep and maintenance of the facilities that the schools operate in. Back to Superintendent Skinner's point, landlord-tenant relationship. Anyone that touches or performs work in the facilities should be trained by the landlord and authorized by the landlord. We find many times that's not the case. By the time some of our tradespeople show up to look at a problem, they end up determining lack of upkeep and maintenance, or someone else has touched it before they've even got a chance to take a look at it, in some instances, and that's not always. In addition to that, I mean, I remember back when something as simple as changing an air filter, city purchased air filters, we found them in the dumpster. But they weren't being swapped out. You can walk into school and see a water-damaged ceiling tile that's been sitting there for who knows how long. That's not skilled trades work. That kind of stuff, you don't need an electrician license, you don't need a plumbing license, you don't have to be a carpenter, you don't have to be a painter, and none of the skilled trades of 1705, they're not filing grievances over those minor daily corrective actions. We're talking about routine maintenance and upkeep all the way up to specialized care and upkeep, and in contracting out when it makes sense as far as like large installations, major repairs, elevators, all of these things. It falls on the city's shoulders. I mean, at the end of the day, the city is ultimately responsible for every building that the schools are utilizing. So when something doesn't get done, we have to pay the bill for that. We have to correct that, whether it's contracted out or in-house. When something does get done, same thing. It's no different. A pipe burst, guess what? No one's coming to bail the city out on what it's costing us to maintain our facilities. We're telling you, as the landlord, we need to change the way these agreements are as far as the upkeep and maintenance. And I firmly believe, as the landlord, no one should be touching those facilities without the city making sure they're trained and authorized to be able to do so. Because we've tried it the other way for quite some time, and you can see the outcome. It's something that could have been as simple as potentially recharging something or changing a $20 part turns into a $20,000 repair. So this is not about we need to retain control and all that. I don't understand what control is there in a landlord-tenant situation where we're just talking about facilities. What is there to control in that situation? And I said it earlier. If you're talking about the money, maintenance, effort, charge-offs, that's a separate conversation. You need to bring a motion forward and begin those discussions separately. But as far as the facilities, what is there to keep control over? The horrible service that you've been getting as tenants? That's the only thing you're going to regain control by bucking, creating, establishing, starting to look at a centralized facilities, because there's nothing else really you could. And I mean, ultimately, the city, I believe, would have a way forward if we really had to file legislation to say, look, we need to create a centralized facilities department, period. And the first thing they're going to ask is, well, we'd rather see collaborative effort. We've been trying to be collaborative here. We've brought this up 3 years ago. Never went anywhere. We put a vote forward to establish this. It got denied. We've called joint meetings to try to explain how we're looking at it. So, I mean, we're trying to offer a seat at the table to carve out what this looks like together, but we can't continue financially to move the same way we've been moving with our facilities, period. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to get there, but we'd rather have you work with us and be allies and get there together than us have to go the alternative and figure out what way we can go to get this facilities problem or disaster that it's been under control. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Robinson. Great points. Committee Member Martin.
Thank you very much. You know, and I will freely admit that you know, having this conversation, you know, I think moving forward, I think that's fine. And as I'm understanding the conversation tonight, you've been having these conversations, at least on the city side, for a while. So just maybe in terms of trying to save some time, where is it that you see the cost savings coming from? Like, what is the master plan that's going to be so much better than what we have now?
I don't know, and no one's going to lie here and say there's a cost savings. It's more about the learning environment that everyone has been pushing forward. There is no cost. We gave you the cost savings. You got the cost savings right now. this is the product you're getting for the cost savings. Is if you're okay with this cost savings measure that's in place right now and the product you're getting, then that's the cost savings piece. There's going to be a cost, and no one's trying to say.
And I get that.
There's
I
not.
agree with you.
To get a better product, you're going to have to maintain it. And the problem is we've invested, the school department also, when we talked about Pawtucketville and we looked at over at St. John Dock and purchasing that property, that was a combined effort for your need, but don't ever kid yourself, there was a need by the city also. It was a neighborhood, so, and we worked together on that, and I thank all of you for that purpose. But there is a need by both. We're talking about a neighborhood, we were worried about what was gonna go there, so, but to say that there's gonna be this magical cost savings, it's gonna be a cost. There's no question there's a cost. So if anybody in here is trying to tell you that there's gonna be a cost savings up front, there isn't gonna be. But I promise you this, those heating units that are on the high school that are very, very complicated right now, you don't want one of those to fail. And right now, I don't know if they're being maintained or not. I don't know. When I look at a lot of things over there, I'm not sure of a lot of things. Everybody's pointing the fingers because we still have a contractor on board, but if that contractor would have left 2.5 years ago, there'd be no warranty on these stuff. They wouldn't have came back and fixed anything because they left you with a sign-off that said everything was in good working order.
But that wasn't a custodian who signed off. I mean, that was the city side.
No, it's the city, but the custodians have a responsibility, and so does the school department, to wash and maintain things and make sure they're properly treated and be trained to do that also. Like that gym floor is not something that is as simple as, okay, go wash it with whatever you want. So, and I think that's how we were left over there, was they weren't really trained adequately enough to be able to maintain something in today's standards that way. And I think that's the key piece is if you train in, less downtime, less complaints to Ms. Doherty at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's what we're trying to say is you get to look at things longer. You need more staff to do that. That lands and buildings has been cut to the bare bones by the city. And I don't know your maintenance of effort. I don't get to see that either. And I wish one of you would file a Freedom of Information Act and get it, because I would like to see the same thing that you're asking. But at the end of the day, how do we give you the resources to actually do what we all want? And this is the best method to do it. There really is no other way. If you add more custodians, are we adding more to the problem? If we add more lands and buildings people, are we just adding to the problem? We've had problems in the past with some of the people who were in charge of the heating. There's no question that those units were mistreated. But again, we have one commissioner. He's in between both. He's trying to run snow operations to road paving to everything else, and after 48 hours of working and being down there, we're asking him to go this way and that way, and his staff isn't really enough to create a good facilities outcome. And the branch that's getting hurt the most is your facilities department. Okay. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if I may, just I'm wondering if we can bring to a successful conclusion. If I suggest that we've had enough discussion for me to feel ready to have a discussion with the city manager without a vote necessarily. And in other words, I think the devil is in the details. So if the city manager and I worked out some details, we could then bring it to the school committee and city council. In other words, there wouldn't need to be a vote prior to having some of those details so we all know what we're talking about when we're voting.
Could we also make sure I'm sorry. Can we also make sure that we get that maintenance of effort output in the Freedom of Information Act request?
We have it, yeah.
We have the maintenance of effort reports. We sign off on it in the fall, so we're just going to go over it and look at it more closely.
Okay. All right.
And I think if I could just, I'm happy to move forward. As you said, we have another meeting. I just want to say, I think there's been a little bit of the buildings aren't kept clean enough, and we're like, well, we've got toilets that don't get fixed for months and months and months. I mean, you've got the high school alone, thousands of teenagers in that building. There's a lot of wear and tear on our buildings. And I like the idea of us trying to cooperate. I think that we've seen more cooperation between the two bodies than I've ever seen in my years of paying attention to the city and the school politics, and I want to move forward in that effort. But I think the superintendent hit the nail on the head. From past experience, we don't feel like we've been prioritized. You're looking at hiring, you need more plumbers, you need more electricians. These are things that are uppermost in my mind.
Jackie,
Yeah, thank you.
in this FY '26 budget, we've added $1 million to facilities. We've added $1 million. So we understand what school committee member Martin is saying. We added $1 million to that facilities department for this reason. So we are in the position to say, where's the money coming from? $1 million up front. Would I say that's the end all be all? No.
1.3, so I think for 3 new positions.
But yeah, so we are trying to get to
And
that.
if I may comment, and I think some progress has been made here tonight. Look, we can trade bobs all night. No, they're not clean well, you're not fixing things well. We could go on all night, okay? The past has not been good, okay? We own that. There's no two. I'm looking you straight in the eye. That's on us, okay? We believe this merger, we believe strongly this merger will make us more efficient and a cost savings. And one example in the short term, I disagree with one of my colleagues, is that the idea of creating new positions in a city side is to go contract out less and do things more in-house, which results in immediate savings. So there's one right there that just comes to mind. So I guess it's coming from me. I would ask, and I think we're on the same page as my colleagues, I don't want to speak for them, but that you reconsider that vote, and you give your voice, your concerns to the superintendent. We have 2 very reasonable, capable CEOs here that can hash this out. I truly believe that. You voice your concerns to the superintendent. He sits down, negotiates with the manager, comes back to you with answers, and hopefully you'll find it sufficient and you'll give a positive vote. If not, I'll understand. But we ask that you allow the negotiations to go forward, them two to hash it out and come back, and hopefully you vote favorable. And I know you have concerns that'll be genuine. I have full trust and faith in all of you. So that's my take. Chair Dodd.
I just have one question, and it's not on this, it's on, while Mr. St. Cyr is here. I didn't see this text from Jim Hall. He's our operations superintendent. He wants to make sure the bid documents request that work start and finish in a particular time period for these projects, that we set up these parameters, because it is so dependent for the work we're able to.
Certainly, that's the.
Commissioner?
Yep, absolutely, that's the plan.
Okay.
We're trying to tighten that as much as possible.
Yep, and that's another reason the commissioner is straight out, as Councilor Gidget. The commissioner has too much on his plate, quite frankly. We're looking for specialization. We think it will give you the best environment for learning, and your teachers and your students. We're confident of that.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Dakota.
To the city solicitor, since the vote was taken, can they reconsider that vote at their next meeting?
No.
No, they can't, right?
It has to be within 24 hours, is my understanding. But I think we could take a different vote.
Take a different vote? Is that what it is?
I mean, the way I felt that the way that was worded, it very much locked us into, we would join together no matter what happened.
Okay.
And I'm frankly not that comfortable, because the devil is in the details.
Then I would make a motion that the city manager and the superintendent of schools begin talks to discuss the process, begin the process of creating a facilities department.
Are you seconding?
Committee Member Bahu, is that a second or is that
So
a?
my question is, and I know we've taken a lot of time here, and thank you, city councilors sitting on one side of the room and school committee members sitting on the other side of the room.
No, it's supposed to be a
Everybody
team,
with
I know.
their input, sometimes it was a little, aggressive, but, we all understand each other. But to the city solicitor, must we take a vote to enter a conversation, or can we have a conversation with the superintendent and the city manager to go ahead and start feeling out what these details are before we take a vote? And if we do take a vote in the affirmative, are we bottled in to having not, are we locked into always being a part of that facilities group between the 2 units? So,
Garrett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to answer those questions as well as I can. So the way that I'm reading the statute, Chapter 71, Section 37M, to consolidate city functions, it has to be approved by both bodies. So the city council has taken the vote to authorize it, therefore.
So to consolidate, not to discuss, correct? We're just looking for a discussion, not necessarily a consolidation.
According to based on the statute, the way I'm reading it, the authorization would have to come before any consolidation would happen.
Yeah, meaning the city council already voted for this, we would need a vote on the school department, on the school committee side, correct? For the official consolidation.
That's the way I'm reading the statute, yes.
So we've already voted, to Councilor Dakota's motion on the floor, we've already voted on this. So is it up to a motion from a school committee member to bring it back on the floor for a new vote? You do it to
Ms. Martin?
I would just say, I don't think we can vote on it. I mean, honestly, we can't vote on it tonight.
Not tonight,
It's a
yeah, obviously,
subcommittee,
no.
so we can't do
Oh,
anything.
not tonight, yes.
But I do think that, I mean, if I'm interpreting what the attorney is sharing with us, I think, if we're going to make a vote towards consolidation, then we need to the negotiations have to happen before we vote on it.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, I don't think we
yes.
need to take the school committee doesn't have to take any additional action right now. The superintendent would be working with the manager to craft what they feel is best.
Yeah.
That will be what's brought to the school committee that we would then approve or not approve. And then it goes back
Do I
to
have
the
a second?
city.
Do I have a
I'm
second?
going to second.
Thank you.
Councilor Dakota had the motion.
All right, seconded by Chair Doherty.
Eileen can second it. Rossi?
Do
Do you want to
I'll
second it?
second it.
Okay,
I'll
good.
second it, seconded by Committee Member Del Rossi. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Chairperson Doherty.
Yes.
Mr. Bahu.
Yes.
Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
Chairperson Belanja.
Yes.
Mr. Dakota.
Yes.
Ms. Scott. 5 yeas, 1 absent.
Motion to adjourn?
By Ms. Del Rossi,
All right, yeah.
second by Mr. Dakota. All those in
No.
favor?
Yeah. There you are.
Thank you all. Goodbye. We have a
Meeting adjourned.